Okay.
All right, Timmy, you used to work for GRU.
Yep.
So
In the control room in storm maintenance.
So how come, why do some houses keep power and other houses do not keep power?
Just depends on where you are on the feeder. So to here, the closest substation is Kernan and Mount Pleasant, or McCormick, whatever they call it there. And from that substation, you probably have about 12 to 20 feeders that come out. They're automated and they're monitored by the control center. So if a tree hits one of those feeders, it'll short it out, the breaker will open, and then it'll automatically close again. And it'll actually do that 3 times. So you can actually, the first one's typically kind of a real fast one. The second one's like a 30-second delay. Power goes off for 30 seconds. And then if it came back on, if it would have gone off again, you would be out. So they go through, they close 3 times.
So I know we experienced, like, we'd have a flicker and it'd be off for a split second, come back on, it was off for a split second, a little while later, you know, maybe 5 minutes. And then fairly soon after that, we had about a 30-second out, but then we were on, no issues again.
So that's because there's something in hitting that main feeder line, and the breaker at the substation is turning it off, turning it back on. So when those are monitored, there's probably on average 2,500 customers on each of those feeder lines. So they're very important. So if they go off, they know firsthand that they're off, and they'll get those back up firsthand. And that line probably comes all the way from that substation across the bridge and down Gervin Road. And so in this neighborhood, this particular neighborhood is fed from underground. So the lines are all underground. They get to Gervin Road and they attach right to that feeder. So since that feeder, there's no like fuses or anything in this scenario, this neighborhood would be back on pretty quickly. Your neighborhood would be back on pretty quickly because you're right on Kernan. You're underground right from there. So as long as that feeder comes on, and as long as you haven't had a tree that's uprooted your underground utilities, which is kind of rare, then you're going to get on pretty quick. Now, take Kim's house. She's down that road. She's a quarter of a mile off of Mount Pleasant. So if a tree comes down, there's overhead lines there. It can knock them over. And it'll blow fuses out on the main line, out on Mount Pleasant. And she'll be out until the crews get out there.
Okay.
Put the lines on, or even if a tree just brushed them, momentarily the fuses will blow and she'll be out until a crew comes out there to look at the lines and make sure there's no tree, put new fuses in and put them back on.
And that's when you see the transformers blowing?
That's what they call transformers blowing. The lines are just getting shorted out. Their tree limb brushes by them, or they get knocked into each other, and it creates a hell of a spark.
And that's just a breaker kicking, pretty much.
It's the 20,000 volts getting shorted out, causing a big arc. And you got to remember, 20,000 volts will jump a gap that far, about an inch per 1,000 volts.
Yep.
So all the lines got to do is get close, and once you get the arc going, it keeps going until you kill power. Even if you spread the lines back apart again, it'll. And so that's why that breaker does that first little small blink, because it'll extinguish that arc. It'll be good, hopefully.
Okay. Wow.
So then, the first, they call it reclosing. The first reclosing is instantaneous, and then it'll trip, close, and then it'll actually be less sensitive the second time it closes, and it'll like put a little more juice to whatever it is that's shorting it out.
Yeah.
And then if it trips again, it'll open. Sometimes this varies by utilities. Sometimes it's like a 15-second delay before it tries. Sometimes 30. But generally, you get 3 tries. You get the first blink, you get a shorter blink, and then you get a long one, and then after that, it'll stay off. So.
Why the beaches? So the beaches seem, was that flooding? It's older infrastructure, the whole combination of everything?
What I heard happen at the beach on the news I picked up is we've got those high voltage transmission lines, hundreds of thousands of volts that cross over the Intercoastal Waterway.
Yeah.
There's only 2 paths to the beach. Both of those went offline for debris or whatever. So the beaches, I understand, were totally 100% blacked out.
Right.
Because the 200,000 volt lines that feed all the substations at the beach were out. And they said they got the northern one back on, which I think is the one that goes across from Underwood here. That might be what they call the northern one.
Well, that's interesting because they were opening up all of the bridges except Wonderwood.
Yeah, there's something going on at Wonderwood. I don't know what it is, but anyway, I know there's a crossing there, and there's another crossing between Beach and Atlantic.
Yeah.
where the power lines cross the water. So if something happened on those lines, but they can run the whole beaches off of just one of them. So
Right.
They got these back on, and that was enough for the beach to get them. Now they got to start worrying about the feeders and then the fuses from there. It's just
Start chasing it down now.
yeah. So people think they're going to be on tomorrow. No, they'll have all the feeders back up. All the breakers will be closed, but they'll have thousands of little neighborhoods with fuses that they got to go to each one.
Wow.
Well, and here's something interesting. We'll segue because you do communications at University of Florida on game day
Yeah.
for years. What would be the issues of everything to try to hold the game today after not being able to really get into
Gainesville
town?
had tropical storm force winds, so I don't know what outages are happening there. I think the big thing is supporting the rest of the state, freeing up those hotel rooms for evacuees, not getting more people on the highway. You know, because the game was supposed to be at noon today. People would have traveled yesterday. There's just no way that would have happened.
Can't travel in a damn storm.
No.
And then you used to travel with the team. The logistics of trying to pack up the last minute and head to Baton Rouge and
Yeah, they need a couple of days notice to do that because they have to drive the equipment there. They don't fly it, so they would have had to have a good notice before they could.
and then the teams getting set up with hotels and all the rest of the stuff. It just doesn't happen.
It would have been a disaster. I'm glad they did the right thing canceling it because logistically wise they couldn't have pulled it off.
Yeah.
It'd be a great day for a football game, but then again also the fans. How many fans are going to want to show up and watch the game when they're trying to deal with hurricane damage at their homes?
Well, honestly, if it's a noon kickoff right now, we'd probably be out working in the yards.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Tim.
You're welcome.